From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains. Through
Welcome back. Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network. On this edition of the program, I have with me Ken Sleman. Nice to have you.
Thank you very much for having me, sir. Very happy to be here this morning.
Well, we'll start on what looks like a not very cheering note. A Nigerian athlete, Hammer, is falling on her for tainting her system. Who broke into limelight in 2003 after she won the bronze medal at the African Under-20 Championship in Zambia, has been on the wrong side of the law, especially when it concerns doping. And so the 19-year-old has now been banned for 4 years from the sports of hammer.
It's very sad, Mr. Siri. We're hearing another athlete, of course, being caused this money for Nigerians, especially to athletics lovers, at this point in time, because for the past 2 years, we've seen about, almost 6, if not more than that, of our athletes, of course, being banned. And these athletes are not just ordinary athletes. They are athletes, of course, who has done something huge, something great, of course, for Nigeria when it has to do with athletics. We talk about the likes of Rosemary Chukwuma. We talk about Blessing Okagbari, and as well as others as well. Now we're talking about, Ada Princess, who came into the limelight in 2023 down there in the Zambia, talking about the Under-20 Championship. And of course, everyone thought, that performance we saw from her, of course, was her strength, but coming up to hear this, at this point in time, that she took a prohibited sometimes is something very, very disturbing, very disappointing, of course, to Nigerians and as well the athletics lovers, down here. I think it's then time. Yes, this Minister of Sports talking about John Waneno is trying to move this kind, of course, to try to see how all of this situation can be curbed, but it's really not, good. At 19 years of age, you're being found, guilty in terms of taking the prohibited substance too early, for an athlete, like.
What do you think? What do you think about her handlers? Those who handle her, because she's, you won't say she's just there. She has coaches. She'll have other who take care of her, given that she's very young at the age of 19.
Yes, I think we should be looking forward to see, what our coaches, of course, what they've done. Especially, as an athlete, you should have a nutritionist, someone who checking, of course, what you're taking into your system because of, situations like this, And I think we should be looking forward to hear from our nutritionist what happened. Did the nutritionist actually check, what she was taking or the things she was, taking into her system before that particular race down there, talking about the Under-20, championship. I think all of those persons, should be questioning our coach and nutritionist if she has at all. Of course, to actually know what really happened at this point in time, because too young to hear this. At 19 years of age, you're having doping issue. So what will happen when, of course, you get to, let's say, 25 and thereabouts? So it's really, really disturbing, Mr. Siri. It's not a very good one, of course, for Nigerian, athletes. And I think the Athletic Federation of Nigeria, they have a lot, of course, to do at this point in time to make sure that, sensitization to the athlete, of course, will really go a long way in helping them, see how they are coupled of this situation, especially when it has to do with doping, because it's really, really disappointing that so many Nigerian athletes are falling victim of taking prohibited substances.
Becoming very worrisome that Nigerian athletes are beginning to be on the wrong side of the law, especially when it comes to doping. And with the long hammer at the age of 19, she will be back after 4 years. Yes, she could still return back to the sports, but it's very important that organizers, handlers of Nigerian athletes ensure that their system are not tainted, and if not for anything, when they go for international competition, because they will always be checked, and so it will be better for them to be checked in-house first, so that they don't go to give a poor image to the country, like you mentioned there. So many names, big names, Blessing Okagbari, undergoing a long-term ban that she will never come back from, if you ask me, back to the sports. And we think it's high time we learn lessons from those who have been banned. The organizers, for me, cannot say they are not concerned about what has happened to the country. Like I mentioned, if you check them before the games, or the sports, the international meets, they should not be allowed to go disgrace the country at the international scene. But the organizers definitely must begin to take action from this point and ensure that we don't have many Nigerians on the wrong side of WADA. Meanwhile, we'll go straight now to basketball. And talking about basketball, you'll be seeing here in Nigeria, the Luedem Invitational Tournament ongoing in Lagos is taking center stage. And of course, we've seen teams who have won the competition before in the forefront. Kwara Falcons, of course, one of them was the very first on the board, making the very, very first two baskets of the game against the Rivers Hoopers. But immediate response from Hoopers saw them take control of the game to finish the first quarter with a 7-point advantage. It ended 27-20. Of course, in the second quarter, we saw Rivers Hoopers, they were popularly called the Kingsmen, who came very strong with an improved defensive and outscoring Falcons by 24-15 to carry a 16-point lead. At halftime, it was 51-35. You would think that's what will continue. But what happened at the second half, Kingsley?
Of course, it was really an impressive, ride as well, for the Hoopers in the second half. We saw them, of course, coming up, with a very huge dominance, and then, finishing the last quarter in that one with about 18 to 19 points lead, putting up the fourth, ending
18 to 9 point lead.
Yeah, 18 to 9 points lead, for them, and I think. It's actually a very huge one, of course, for the River Super side. Looking at the fact that, the last game, they lost, to Hoops and Reed, and that was the first time, of course, they were losing the game after putting up a 21-game winning streak, And the coach of the side, Ogo Dado, actually said that they played with a more hungry side. And if you take a look at that game, Hoops and Reed were more, hungry, for the victory in that particular encounter. But they were able to bounce back against Kwara Falcons to take up that semi-final spot, and that's what champions are made of. That's the mentality, of course, you tend to see with a champion, and that's what River Supers, of course, they pose at this point in time. They're defending champion, and I think with the way they are actually going at this point in time, they might also go the way, of course, to take up the championship. But for me, it's been a very huge ride, for them, starting from the first day of the tournament where they started, brightly. And looking at the way they've played so far, I think it's something to write home about. And not just this, we should be looking forward to see this performance. Is it good enough? Are they good enough? Are they living up to expectation on the court? Because not the Lewis Edem tournament at this point in time. I think Nigerians are looking forward to see what River Supers will be able to showcase at the Basketball African League, at this point in time. That's actually the bone of contention at this point in time. So whatever they're doing here, they should be able, of course, to see if the performance is equal to what they will be seeing or facing at the Basketball African League. But good one for them, getting to the semi-final. I think they might just be defending this one once again.
Well, River Supers, the Kingsmen, are doing well at the Edem Championship. We hope they can continue. This is their third straight semi-final appearance at the championship. And like you heard there from Kingsley, they are defending champions. Can they get it past their Ghanaian counterparts, Spinsters, later today?
I think they have what it takes. I think they beat the Ghanaian side in their first game. I think that was Brave of Ghana. Yes, they beat them in this particular tournament. And that was their first game. They got past them. And I think this time around, I don't think, the Sprinters Knights of Ghana, of course, will be a very tough side, for River Supers. From what we've seen so far, Coach Ogo Daldo and the players, they both come to the party this time around, and they're ready, to take this one. Knowing the fact that Nigerians, are really watching at what they're doing, taking a look at, their performance, like I mentioned, because everyone is not looking at what is happening at Lewis Edem tournaments. Yes, they have to monitor their performance, but the key, the focus, should be the Basketball African League. So I think River Supers, with these targets on their way, and as well as everyone looking at them at this point, I think they will want to do everything, to take out, the Ghanaian side, and then gets down, of course, to the final for the Lewis Edem tournament.
Well, talking about basketball in the local scene, the River Supers in the semi-final today, they will try to eliminate their Ghanaian counterparts, Spinsters, to move into the final. Like we mentioned, they are defending champions. They are the team that will represent Nigeria at the Basketball League Africa's 4th edition. This is preparatory tournament for how they will perform at the Basketball League, Kingsley?
Yeah, preparatory tournament, of course, for Rivers Hoopers, and we hope that, they actually up their game because a lot of expectation are on them. Looking at the fact that they'll be facing some tough opponents down there at the Basketball African League, the likes of US Monastir, defending champion, of course, you will see of the Basketball African League. We talk about APRO as well. That's another side we should be, of course, wary about. And you take a look at those teams, line up, and it's more of a reason why River Supers, of course, should improve on the level of performance because if they don't, it's going to be a whitewash, just like what we saw in the first edition of where they went. And Kwara Falcons going the last time couldn't win any of the games, of course, that they played. We don't want to see that again. It seems as if when it has to do with basketball down here in Nigeria, especially the Basketball African League, we don't live up to expectation. But you talk about basketball in Africa, Nigeria, of course, were number one. The Tigers and the Tigers, of course, were always up there when it has to do with basketball down here in Africa. So why is what's the reason why, the reason we don't have the league teams down here doing very well at the Basketball African League? A lot of questions, of course, we have to, of course, ask at this point in time, and that's why we should look forward to see River Super Support living up to expectation at this edition of the Basketball African League.
Well, talking about basketball on the scene, Nigerian scene here, and of course the continent as well. We mentioned to you that River Supers that are into the semi-final of the EDM Championship is preparing as well for the Basketball League Africa that comes up. They are off this Savannah Conference that will be coming up in the next few weeks, just about 2 weeks or so from now. We wish them the very best of luck as they prepare. Meanwhile, across in the international basketball, we had some interesting fixtures in the early hours of this morning. And one fixture that should interest Nigerians was the encounter between the Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers. It ended 105 to 109. The away team 76ers from Philadelphia, of course, winning that one. Center of attraction, Joe Embiid, returning after injury layoff.
Yeah, Joe Embiid, returning from injury was for a very huge boost, of course, morale boost, for this Philadelphia 76ers. Came up with a very, very impressive performance with 29 points, of course, he got, in that particular encounter. I think his return was really, a morale booster for the team, and they actually went all the way to actually get that away win against the Miami Heat down there. Impressive one, and Tracy Maxey, of course, was another man who was very, very fantastic in that game. 37 points, of course, he posted in that particular encounter. Was such a brilliant performance, of course, we saw for the Philadelphia 76ers. Kelly Oubre also came up with 18 points and was, of course, good for the Philadelphia 76ers side, to get that victory against Miami Heat. Miami Heat also came down to the party as well, where we saw Jimmy Butler, of course, was quite impressive, in the night, coming up with 20 points in that particular encounter. But Nikola Jovic was not, that very fantastic when it has to do it, turning out the point. Just 11 points, for the man, and that was not the kind of performance, we expected. But Adebayo, the Nigerian man, of course, a lot of expectation on him, but we just saw, him putting up a 14 point. But you will see, was quite impressive from the man Bam Adebayo, who's also been one man who you always see coming up to the party, for the Miami Heat. But was such unfortunate for them. Talking about the Miami Heat, not getting a point at home and allowing the Philadelphia 76ers coming up to take up that victory away from home.
Again, Miami Heat, Bam Adebayo would like to forget so quickly because we saw him on a minus 24. One of the worst game minus 24 you want to think of. Though he had 14 points from 15 shots in the encounter. Bam Adebayo, definitely, like I said, Nigerian interest in the encounter between Miami Heat and Philadelphia 76ers. It is just about 5 games or so, 10 games to the end of the season, and this match that Philadelphia 76ers did win is a good one for them because it makes them to enter now into the qualification zone for the playing tournament which comes up in the next few days, just about 10 days or so.
Yes, it's actually a very good one, of course, for the Sixers, and from what it is, I think this victory, especially coming away from home, will help them, of course, to get, something huge, of course, on the way, for themselves. I think it's actually very good. As it stands now, they are seated in the 8th, in the Eastern Conference, and with a total of about, I think, 53 553 points, for them. They've actually racked up about 42, victories, and they've gotten 35 losses, so far. Quite an impressive performance, you say, for the Philadelphia 76ers, for what we've seen so far. But we just hope that, of course, they continue with this impressive, performance, going forward.
Impressive performance going forward for 76ers there. We hope that they will continue because the 7 to 8 play-in game tournament is up, and like you mentioned there, they are in the 8th place position at that Eastern Conference. Let's look at one other fixture. Dallas Mavericks were winners last night or early hours of this morning against their opponents, Kingsley. Atlanta Hawks couldn't make up to 100 points. They had only 85 points on the night as compared to 109 points scored by Mavericks from Dallas.
Of course, you expect it to be a very difficult encounter for the Atlanta Hawks, knowing the fact that, of course, they are playing away from home against the Dallas Mavericks. Although you say much, of course, was expected from them, but they couldn't live up to expectation. Couldn't make up to 100 points. Disappointing performance, of course. You see down there until Hunter, of course, one man, of course, we always rely on. They always rely on. Couldn't actually come up with the points. Got about 13 points, in that particular encounter. Some for the big name like Jude Murray, of course, is one player that always come to the party for the Hawks. Put up a total of 16 points, and we didn't see much, of course, from them. That's why, of course, they didn't get that battery and not scoring up to 100 points or even over 100 points in that game. I think it was a very poor performance, from the Hawks. But for the Dallas Mavericks, we saw them, of course, living up. Some of the players down there living up to expectation, especially the likes of Luka Doncic, who came up with about 25 points, in that particular encounter. Kerry Hyven was one man, of course, who also came to the party for the Dallas Mavericks. 26 points, of course, he actually posted in that particular encounter. I think the brilliance of Luka Doncic and Kerry Hyven was the reason, of course, the Dallas Mavericks were able to get that victory against the Atlanta Hawks.
Talking about matches that were played in the early hours of this morning and the NBA, the Basketball League, we saw Houston Rockets score 110 points at home out there in Houston against 133 scored by Golden State Warriors. Golden State Warriors back to winning ways on the road.
Golden State Warriors back to winning ways, and of course, it's a thing of joy, for the Warriors, at this point in time, and getting that victory away from home, I think, is to be a morale booster for them going forward. This season, Mr. Siri, was quite an impressive performance for some of the players, especially likes of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. Both players posted 29 points each, for themselves in that particular encounter. You can also take away the brilliance of Andre Wixon, who came up with 10 points, and Trey Jackson Davis also came up with a total of 20 points as well for the Golden State Warriors. It was such a brilliant performance this time around. They've not been that fantastic so far, but I think this victory, of course, might just be a morale booster for them, looking at the fact that they were able to come to get this one away from home, and I think it's a very huge one, of course, for the Golden State Warriors so far. And then when you take a look at how they've actually gone so far in the season, and then you actually tend to look at it, the fact that the Golden State Warriors, might just come up with something this time around. Like I mentioned, they've not been fantastic. If you take a look at where they are in the Western Conference, they are seated 10th in the Western Conference, and that's not the kind of position, of course, you should be seeing the Golden State Warriors at this point in time. A team that has the likes of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, should be able, of course, to have a very impressive position at this stage in the NBA, but not a very good performance so far from them. Maybe this victory, of course, may just be a morale booster for them going forward.
LA Clippers had only, in fact, 2 points separated them from their opponents on the night. You wonder, LA Clippers, a very strong team, having just 2 points difference between them. Denver Nuggets, Nuggets scoring 100 points as compared to the Clippers, who scored 2 points playing at home.
Yes, impressive, of course, for the LA Clippers. 2 point difference, 102 and 100, of course, for the Denver Nuggets. I tell you, was really an impressive encounter last night, Mrs. Siri. Talking about for the Clippers, we saw Paul George, one man, of course, that came to the party in that particular encounter with 28 points, of course, for himself, and the likes of James Harden, who was always been one man, of course, you talk about in that Clippers side, came up with 20 points in that one. I think the Clippers actually wanted this particular victory because if they didn't actually get this one, might not actually go down in the well for them, and they were ready, of course, for the Denver Nuggets. Don't forget, Denver Nuggets, that one side that have been very formidable, this season in the NBA, even last season as well. They were also very, very fantastic, and they look forward to continue that performance at this time around. But was such a disappointing one that they couldn't actually clinch this one. Just 2 point difference in this one. For the Denver Nugget, we expected the likes of Aaron Gordon, of course, to come up with an impressive performance, but just 18 points for him. Nikola Jokic, one man, of course, in that Denver Nugget side that always churn out the points, came up with 36 points, but still not good enough, of course, for the Denver Nuggets, to take up that victory against the Clippers, who came prepared, and of course were also using the home advantage, to get some kind of support or morale booster in that particular encounter. So for me, was not really the kind of performance we should expect from the Denver Nuggets, but it is the game of basketball, and that's how the result, of course, pans out at the end of the day.
Interesting fixtures, like I mentioned to you, 5 games to go, 10 days to replay in tournament in the NBA. So regular season is beginning to come to an end, and I'm very sure we are now beginning to separate the boys from the men in the NBA. Time for us to take a break. When we return from a break, we'll get you some more exciting stories, especially from the world of boxing. Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury encounter. Will it see the light of the day? When we return from a break, we'll be able to answer that question. And in football, there was a 7-goal thriller at Stamford Bridge last night. The brick shook, but he was able to withstand the test from Manchester United. Details when we return from the break.
Telling him not to counterpunch. Telling him not to counterpunch.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring all sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.
Welcome back. It's Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network, and we've told you how a Nigerian athlete had been banned for doping. 4 years ban coming the way of a Nigerian athlete, courtesy of WADA, and this is not good news, I must tell you, and officials of Nigeria need to do some more. Beyond that, we'll now go straight to other aspect of the story on Sports Talk this hour. In boxing, Anthony Joshua would not be fighting Tyson Fury or even Alexander Usyk next. What could this be, Kingsley? Because Derek Chisora, one of the friends, is saying this is not on the card.
Yes, we'll just keep our fingers crossed. You know, it's a game of boxing, and anything can happen at any point in time. Derek Chisora is a very good friend, you know, to Anthony Joshua, and he knows a lot, you know, about the man. But Anthony Joshua, after that impressive, fight he had against Francis Ngannou, everyone, of course, was tipping him to fight either Alexander Usyk or Tyson Fury, because Usyk and Fury, they have a bout, of course, this year. So everyone was expecting him to fight, you know, either for Tyson Fury or Alexander Usyk after that impressive, you know, outing against Francis Ngannou. But Chisora coming up to say that Joshua might not be facing, you know, might not be facing Fury or Alexander Usyk. I think there's another twist in at this point in time, because we hear that Queensberry Promotion are hosting a Wembley Stadium event later this year, and Chisora claims, you know, that Joshua, of course, will be heading the card. We'll just keep our fingers crossed. His next opponent, of course, has not been reviewed yet. We don't know who is going to fight now at this point in time. Who knows if even Joshua might even change his mind to want to wait for the winner in the bout between Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury at this point in time. So, for me, whatever Chisora is coming up at this point is not concrete yet. We've not heard from the camp of Anthony Joshua if that will be his next move or his next destination or direction in at this point in time. So for me, I think we should just keep everything, of course, down and see what the camp of Anthony Joshua will be saying at this point in time. But the fight that everyone is expecting is Joshua, of course, facing either Tyson Fury or Alexander Usyk, at this point in time. But Chisora coming up with this, we'll just keep our fingers crossed and, of course, hear from the camp of Anthony Joshua if that will be his next direction.
Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk, always in the news. But Saudi Arabia awaits the much expected fight. Will it see the light of the day? Our fingers are crossed, and we'll keep you posted on any development after this one. But Derek Chisora's revelation is what boxing fans around the world are waking up to, and I'm sure it won't be very good news, because some people are already planned to go to Saudi Arabia to be watching this one.
Yeah, of course, everyone is planning to go down to, of course, Saudi Arabia to watch this particular fight. Everyone is really anticipating that fight between Tyson Fury, and Alexander Usyk. Don't forget, Usyk dealt with Anthony Joshua, and everyone is saying that, Usyk, of course, should also see how to get past, Tyson Fury. But Tyson Fury being undefeated, in all his fights, I think it's going to be a very, very, very tight one for what we've seen so far. They would have actually, get this one done and dusted, but Fury actually came up, I think, earlier this year to say that he had an injury that he cannot, take up, Alexander Usyk. And the match, of course, the fight has to be postponed. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed. Saudi Arabia, of course, being the venue, and I think it's going to be a very, very, huge fight. Everyone, of course, is looking forward to it. We'll see who gets it at the end of the day.
Talking about Saudi Arabia, they are now known as the mecca of boxing. It looks like it will further go a bit stretch to the other sports, tennis, because we are told now that Saudi Arabia will host the next 3 WTA finals. That is, of course, female tennis. Kingsley, we have Saudi Arabia hosting several boxing events back to back to back, and now it will be the same in tennis. The next 3 editions of the Women's Tennis Association matches will be in Saudi Arabia. It looks like the Saudi Public Investment Fund, a sovereign wealth vehicle, is now continuing where in the tennis what they have done in football.
Yes, they're getting to every sport. They're getting to every sport. They are now hosting Formula 1 tournaments, Formula 1 race. They are now hosting boxing bouts. We've seen top football stars down there in the Saudi Arabian League, and now we're seeing them coming down to tennis as well. I tell you, they're really making use of this money. In the coming years, who knows? Saudi Arabia might just be the hub for sports, of course, in the world. They might just, of course, turn the attention of everybody down to, of course, the country for what they're doing at this point in time, investing this money in different sports. And coming up with the WTA, tournaments, I think for me, it's a good idea. But some tennis players are not good with this particular, idea. Looking at the, Saudi country, a lot of restriction, in the country. Maybe some of the players might not be able to express themselves very well the way they want to, and some of the players are kicking against the WTA finals being hosted down there in Saudi Arabia. But they've already gotten the partnership deal has been struck already. So we will be seeing the WTA final, the next 3 editions of it down there in Saudi Arabia. And what does this mean? More money for the Saudis, because a lot of tennis fans who want to go there to watch, their favorite players, at this point in time. I think for what they're doing, they are really diversifying the economy. If you take a look at the Saudi economy, they mostly depend on oil. And this time around, they're going into sports, not just one sport, Formula One, boxing, football you could talk about, and now they're going down to tennis as well. I think for me, it's a very good initiative, despite the fact that some tennis players are not happy with this. I think the money is actually their point of attraction at this point in time. And let's see how, of course, the next 3 editions of the WTA finals, of course, will go down there in Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia, maker of football, maker of boxing, maker of Formula One. Saudi Arabia, the next destination when it comes to world sports. We'll keep our fingers crossed, and of course, I hope that the Sovereign Fund continue to do a good job. Saudi Arabia could be hosting the World Cup any moment soon as well. Meanwhile, in tennis, Rafael Nadal has withdrawn from the upcoming Monte Carlo Masters. This is not good news. This is one man who has won there 11 times.
Yes, sad one. Very disappointing for the fans of Rafael Nadal. Everyone was looking forward to see him come play at the Monte Carlo Masters. He actually said he was going to come play at the Monte Carlo Masters, but for what we're hearing now, he said his body is not ready yet, to compete at this point in time. Very sad. I think the injury has really, really taken a lot, from him at this point in time. Earlier this year, we saw Rafael Nadal, saying he was going to participate at the Australian Open, but about, I think, few days or weeks to the Australian Open, we hear he has sustained another injury, and he has to go take care of himself at this point in time. Age not really, helping him, because
37 years of age.
37 years of age, and years, at this point. So for me, I think it's really a disappointing one to his fans and for himself alone, because if we take a look at his ranking now, really, really down the lane, Rafael Nadal is not the man now in the picture. And for me, who knows, if he continues like this, everyone, of course, might be beckoning on him, of course, to take a bow, from it. Because
talking about taking a bow, Rafael Nadal has earlier hinted that he will be retiring from the sport of tennis this year.
Yes, he actually hinted he'll be retiring. This year, he said it was going to come very hard, this time around. Maybe he actually tagged this to be his last season, that he was coming very hard. But all of a sudden, injury, of course, not allowing him to fulfill that
He didn't take
dream.
part in the Australian Open.
Yes.
He has missed of course, the Sunshine Double, at Indian Wells, and of course at Miami as well. So now we hope that he will come back and do finish on a high note. But it looks like that number 22 is stuck with him. 22 times Grand Slam champion. Will he get number 23? It looks difficult. And Novak Djokovic maybe might just continue to add numbers this year. Well, away from tennis now, let's quickly go to Formula One. And I can tell you, 4 times champion Sebastian Vettel says he has been thinking about coming out of retirement, but it's not his number 1 priority. This 36-year-old German could be, do you see him coming out of retirement, though having won double titles for Red Bull in 2010 and 2013. Looks like a man who can stay in retirement after doing that in 2020. 22.
At 36 years of age, can Sebastian Vettel, of course, still, of course, turn the steering as much, of course, as the fans expect him. I think we should be looking forward to see, because you take a look at it, that Lewis Hamilton are moving to Ferrari, and possibly there might be a space, of course, in Mercedes. But will Mercedes consider Verstappen to be the better replacement, for them at this point in time? That would be the big question. The man, of course, at some point, lost it when he was, active, and of course he sees that he couldn't actually, pull through, and he has to call it a quit. And but he actually said that is not his number one priority. He might not just be coming back, but who knows? Anything can happen. Like I mentioned, Hamilton leaving Mercedes to Ferrari. There might just be an opening down there. But will Mercedes consider him to be the right man to fill into the shoes of Lewis Hamilton down there in Mercedes? I think that's where, of course, the question is at this point in time. But let's keep our fingers crossed and see, of course, if the four-time champion, talking about Max Verstappen, Sebastian Vettel, of course, will be back to Formula One.
Sebastian Vettel, one of the veterans of Formula One, thinking of coming out of retirement just 2 years after he went into retirement. We wish him, let's say, he has to be clinical in his thoughts because there are much younger drivers these days who are making their mark in their respective constructors. Meanwhile, we will now have to stay away from that and go into football. And talking about football, Rivers United, yes, they have left Nigeria to Algeria for the very crunch tie, quarter-final tie against USM Alger of Algeria, because defending champions did play here in Nigeria at the weekend, and were lost narrowly, 1-0 to the Nigerians, Rivers United. But now the United team will have to be in Algiers today, and of course get ready for the 90 minutes plus added time that will decide who gets into the semi-final of the CAF Confederations Cup. Kingsley, what a trip.
What a trip it is, and we hope that, of course, they get there successfully. We hope we don't hear issues, of course, on the way that the Algerians are disturbing them, not giving them the proper facility to train, because these are the things we hear at the end of the day. They were actually being attacked, and all of that. Because I tell you, Mr. Siri, the Algerians will take this lightly. Looking at what happened down here in Nigeria, they didn't give them a favorite time to play. They gave them 2 p.m., knowing that the fact that these players were fasting. They didn't have any water to drink, they didn't eat, and they will have to play that game without eating, without drinking anything.
But
that actually puts them in a very tight condition.
It's not a hidden. The North Africans are the one who practice this most. I think Nigerians learned it from the North Africans. Yeah, so it's not anything new.
And I think they are actually making it look very, very comfortable for them. So if you take a look at it, the time actually put for this particular encounter 8 p.m. February to them when it has to do with the weather condition. They're very good, of course, playing in such a time, and it's going to be a little.
Matches will move to 10 p.m., which is after they must have finished their fasting, and they will have 2 hours to rest after breaking their fast, and take on the Nigerians. So they won't be fasting, when they will take on the Nigerians, because I understand that match is coming over 10 p.m. Algerian time.
I think that's an advantage for them as well.
Right.
Advantage for the Algerians, because I tell you, with this, we'll just pray that it will soon be a difficult one for Rivers United, to play. Because how the players, are they really used to playing in floodlights? That's another question, because down here in Nigeria, we don't really use floodlights to play and all of that. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed. Rivers United really have to make sure they put up a very good defensive work, because if they don't, the Algerians will just equalize that one goal we saw at the Gospel Akpabio International Stadium, and who knows, take up the victory. So they really have to go down there with their A game. Another thing with Rivers Supers is that their finishing has been very, very poor. They had a lot of chances at the Gospel Akpabio International Stadium, but couldn't convert those chances, and that's where they ended up, just winning that one by 1 goal to nil. And if they continue that down there in Algeria, it will be very, very difficult, for them. We'll just hope that they take their chances and try most we can, of course, to put up a very, very good defensive framework. That's going to be the strategy, or the way, for me, I think, they will be able to get past, the quarterfinal of the CAF Confederation Cup.
Well, wish Rivers United very best of luck this weekend. They play in Algiers against defending champion USM Alger. There is yet another crunch tie involving the Nigerian team. Definitely, it has to be the Super Falcons against the Bayana. The sole ticket to qualify to play at the Olympic Games is at stake. The South Africans have arrived in Nigeria many days ago, and it looks like they are very ready. Already the Super Falcons to host their visitors from South Africa.
Yeah, Mr. Siri, I'm not quite impressed. I'm not impressed with the preparation of the Super Falcons of Nigeria. We'll see it as at Thursday. we had about, I think, 18 to 22 players in camp of the Super Falcons of Nigeria. And Assistant Ashola, one of the very big name in the squad, will be coming down to the country today ahead of the tomorrow's encounter. For me, the preparation has not been top notch. The players, they've not, played.
Assistant coming from the United States of America. It's quite a long flight in here,
Yeah.
and she's been active as well. So you wouldn't say she's not, but she still has maybe a couple of hours to rest before the match itself.
But for me, I think if she has actually come earlier, or maybe put up a very good plan, to actually get to the camp earlier, would have been very, very good. For me, I don't think the players, they've actually trained together, especially for this particular way. Take a look at the preparation for the Bayana. They came into the country on Monday, and they've been training from Monday up to today, as we're talking now at this point in time. And they have a match tomorrow. The players are complete in camp. The coach is doing everything as she can, of course, to make sure that they get a very, very huge, performance, against the Super Falcons of Nigeria. So for me, if you take a look at it, they have a very good level of preparation, or high level of preparation ahead of this particular one. So for me, it will be a very difficult one, of course, for the Super Falcons, for what we're seeing at this point in time. It's been a very long time we saw the Super Falcons, at the Olympics. And I think for me, we should be taking this one very, very seriously, no matter how we see it. The Bayana side, they've been very, very fantastic. Don't forget, they are the champions. They were the champions for the Women African Cup of Nations we saw, I think that was 2 years ago. We also saw their performance as well at the FIFA World Cup. Was such an impressive one. They didn't actually had a very bad outing. So for me, I think the Super Falcons should have done better, or done more than what we've seen so far when it has to do with preparation for this particular one. And if they don't take it very, very seriously, it might be a very tight one for them tomorrow.
Super Falcons versus the counterparts from South Africa, Bayana. Tomorrow is D-Day in Abuja, and we hope that they can get the result that will make the return fixture in South Africa at nullity. We were talking about the national team, Bayana. In rankings, what do you make of it? I'm sorry, 2 places in their latest FIFA ranking just released.
Not a very good one for the Super Eagles of Nigeria, being inconsistent when it has to do with the ranking. The 2 friendly games actually brought brought them down when it has to do with the rankings. They won, yes, against Ghana, but didn't get a better result, against I think Mali. Where they lost by 2-0. Was not a very good one. Super Falcons are well ranked, than Mali, and allowed themselves, of course, to fall down to the Malians 2-0. And that's why, of course, we saw that drop.
Talking about the rankings, they were better ranked after the African Cup of Nations.
Yeah, they were ranked 28th.
Now they are 30.
They're 30. Not a very good one. I think that outing at the 2 friendlies we saw, actually brought them down. And I think the better. The faster we get a coach at this point in time to put the team together, I think the better it will be going forward, especially the World Cup qualifiers, of course, that will be coming up very soon.
Which team now is the #1 team in the football playing nation in Africa?
Of course, you talk about #1 team in football playing nation. I think we still have Morocco staying top, despite the fact that they've not been that fantastic. We saw them at the African Cup of Nations. They didn't live up to expectation, and at this point in time, I would just hope that anytime soon, if they don't actually, up their game, we might see, of course, maybe Senegal, coming up, to take that position. Senegal as well, much expectation. Everyone is expecting much from them, but at this point in time, if Morocco do not take up their game, maybe Senegal might just be coming up down there.
Now let's go to Europe, and our first stop will be in the Premier League, where with just about a few games to the end of the season, all the teams are doing their very best to either qualify for Europe or win the competition. For those who are down the ladder, they're trying to avoid relegation. But for Manchester United, their ambition is to enter into European playing places, but Chelsea has a different idea for them because last night at Stamford Bridge we saw a 7-goal thriller. One man that did distinguish himself in that 7-goal thriller was Cole Palmer. Cole Palmer scored a hat-trick for Chelsea. His last 2 goals were, do I say, very stunning. What do you make of it, Kingsley?
Yeah, it was a very impressive performance, for Chelsea. Manchester United, I think they had a very bad day in the office yesterday because they would have actually won that one. They were leading in that game, I think, they were leading about 3 goals to 2 down there, where they would have actually capitalized on that one, but they fell short of doing the necessary. Eric Ten Hag, of course, not coming up with a very good substitution down there, and actually brought a little bit of setback, of course, for United. But Cole Palmer, I tell you, was a very good buy, for Chelsea. He was the hero, for Chelsea down there, putting up a penalty, scoring 2 goals as well in outplay. Was a very huge one, of course, for them. I think Chelsea, one thing we've seen from them this season is that whenever they play against the big teams, you see them coming up to expectation. We saw them against Manchester City, also saw them against Liverpool. We've seen them now against Manchester United. Whenever they face a very big team in England this season, they always come to the party. And good one for Mauricio Pochettino, good one for the players. They are now seated 10th now, still looking for a European spot. Can they? But for Manchester United, I think it's a very, very disappointing one because they are now 11th. I think 11 points is
11 points from the
11 points,
difference
to making the top 4. So a very huge mountain for them to climb because of the fact that the likes of Tottenham, the likes of Aston Villa, they are not leaving any stone unturned at this point in time. They are seeing how to capitalize in their matches. So a European sport will be difficult for Manchester, especially top 4 sports will be difficult for Manchester United, looking at how shaky they are at this
What is it about Manchester United? We saw them against Brentford. They conceded, at the last minute, and now against Chelsea, they've conceded. In fact, they made Cole Palmer's goal the latest goal, winning goal in the history of the Premiership. That goal came in the 101 minutes of the encounter. This is now the latest winning goal in the Premiership in the history of the Premiership in England. What is happening to Manchester United? Like I mentioned earlier, against Brentford, it was the last minute goal that led to an equalizer, and now another last minute goal leading to equalizer. Is it that the defenders? I can hear Eric Ten, blame the defensive errors or errors on the part of the players, but they should have closed in on this one, especially at 3-2 with just about 2 minutes or so to end the match.
Yes, they should have. If you take a look at it, I think injury has not really been that friendly with some Manchester United players. We've seen some of their players, of course, gone on injury, less of Varane, and the rest of them. They've actually gone on injury. But I think in their last 10 games, they've been a little bit formidable. But against Brentford and Chelsea yesterday, they actually fell, short of living up to expectation. For me, Eric Ten Hag as well, I think he should actually up his game when he has to do with his tactics and strategy. I think before this game yesterday, he actually came up to complain that, lot of matches, of course, have been piled up for his team. Actually, the reason why the players are not performing very well. But that's not a very, very good excuse, of course, if you ask me, because take a look at Arsenal. Arsenal are playing in different competition, the Premier League, the Champions League. Why are they not complaining of a lot of games, at the end? And they're still winning games. So what should be the problem, for Manchester United? So for me, I think this inconsistency will really take them down. And I think the new owner of the team, talking about Jim Ratcliffe, is not happy at all with the performance. And if things are not done properly, Eric Ten Hag, of course, might just be, saying goodbyes, to Manchester United.
Liverpool are now back to the top of the Premiership in England, courtesy of their 3-1 win over Sheffield. And that goal that did the magic, especially, was that one from McAllister. What a rocket of a shot we saw in that encounter. So Liverpool back to the top in the Premiership in England. Arsenal coming second. And for talking about Manchester United, I think they have their hands very full now, because this weekend it will be, do I say, super weekend, because They will be at Old Trafford against Liverpool, and that promises to be another very thrilling encounter in the Premiership in England. We're running out of time. Definitely be back at 6 p.m. Nigerian time for Sports Extraordinary. But until then, remember that there will be an encounter tonight in the CAF Confederations Cup. Mamelodi Sundowns is in South Africa, and they have young Africans from Tanzania to contend with in the CAF Confederations Cup. A very interesting fixture you must keep an eye on. We'll give you details of that encounter on our program Sports Extraordinary 6 p.m. Nigerian time. Until then, remember, peace and unity are clearly pathways to progress. Always enjoy here on Atlantic Television Network.